Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to the concept lawn here in Pebble Beach. We're here with a new BMW M5 Touring, and in this video, together with Sean from PSI, we're gonna walk you through the design of the car, we're gonna talk about the specs, interior features, and a lot more. So with that being said, Sean, tell me your first impression of the M5 Touring when you saw it a few days ago.
Well, it blew me away, and especially the color choice being the Isle of Man green, which is the color we saw on the G80 and G82. And it's great to also see the Kyalami Orange inside as well to match with the green.
Now before we dive into the design, I can go over that quite a bit. Tell me if you like the M5 Touring better than the M5 sedan.
I do. I think it's a more practical design. I also think it's a very rare design these days because BMW has no other Touring on the market, and it's going to be nice to see these around town.
And I think that's been my feeling this whole week. I've seen people looking at both cars and they tend to gravitate towards the Touring. Of course, maybe because it's the first M5 Touring offered in the US. Of course, because we've been waiting for another BMW Touring for the last 10 years, probably since the 3 Series Touring. But with that being said, how about we just talk about a little bit about the design of the two cars, because it's quite similar. If we start at the side, I mean, clearly you can tell there is a big difference. When we move to the front, you're not gonna notice that difference. And that clearly starts with this roofline, right? I mean, it's typical Touring style. But what I like about this one, honestly, it's got a little bit more of this coupe-ish look. So it's not very upright. It kind of flows nicely into the back. And then, of course, it still incorporates the Hofmeister kink and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, it has a very smooth design. It doesn't look like this was an afterthought. They've definitely been developing this for a long time, and they wanted it to match, but also have its own unique look.
And if you look from the side also, they moved away from the aggressive shapes on the side. They call this a monolithic design. I'm not sure what it means, but I guess it's more of like simplified design, less creases. You still have this, they call it a character line that goes across. Same idea as always, breaks down the height of the car, makes it a little bit sportier. And then of course you got the typical rocker panel. You see these on so many new BMWs. Again, just to emphasize the sportiness of the M5.
Yeah, and I mean, another familiar part of the design that we've seen on the side is here. This is a wider track in the rear, and they did bring the fender out while keeping the door same as a regular 5 Series. And this was an element we saw on the G80s that I really loved, a really boxy design, and it now carries over into the M5.
Now let's talk about this. No carbon fiber. Disappointing a little bit?
I am, but I know the aftermarket is going to offer it, but it is disappointing to see they didn't carry it over. I do think that this car, design-wise, in pictures, does not do it justice. Like many of our new BMW designs, seeing it in person, you just have to.
I know, but that carbon fiber would have been amazing, just like the M3 Touring. Unfortunately, apparently, it's quite costly to modify the production line to introduce this for the Touring version of the M3 and M5. So unfortunately, we're only getting one option. How about we go to the front and talk about the design there? So of course, if you look at the two cars, you're not gonna notice any major differences, right? I mean, identical front end design, really no difference whatsoever. Probably if you look at the cars, straight on, you're not gonna tell which one is what.
Absolutely, and especially with the really huge intakes in the front, also on the sedan, it's really a familiar look for the M5.
Yeah, and of course, we've seen the design on the regular 5 Series as well in the i5. You have this new interpretation of the headlights, of course, still double headlamps. You have this motorsport-inspired Kinney grille. You can see lots of air openings on the bottom too, because it's got a very powerful engine.
It's the S68, which was also in the XM, and I believe the X7 M60.
That's 738 pounds-feet of torque, enough to take the car from 0 to 60 in about 3.6 seconds. Of course, it's a lot slower than the M5 CX, for example. They just went out. But in many ways, a lot of people gave this car a little bit of a bad mark because of that.
I mean, I think the controversy is going to be the weight. It has been the weight since the launch, but I really think once people are able to drive the car, it's going to hide the weight, just like in the new cars, the G80 and G82, they're pretty heavy as well. So we're just going to have to see once you're able to drive it.
So I'm not trying to come up with excuses for the car, but still, 2,500 kilograms, it's a quite heavy car. And I wish BMW didn't do this, because I feel like they could have probably just done a regular V8 in there, give it maybe 650 horsepower, and it would have been more than enough. But of course, all this hype with electrification, everything else happened, over 10 years ago when the project was conceived, and I guess that was the direction that they chose.
Absolutely.
And this is what we have today. You're absolutely right. I drove the car on track. You do feel the weight on track, but how many people do you think they're actually going to track this car?
Definitely very few, and that's why I think that the Touring is going to be the most practical street car that BMW has to offer.
All right, so now let's take a look at the back, and we're going to show the boot as well. First off, what I'm disappointed about also in this car, in the 5 Series, the fact they don't have a split tailgate. That's something that was so BMW, honestly, and I gave them a lot of negative feedback on this because it's just cool.
You're right, it is cool, and it was even on the G81, had that, which was a really cool throwback feature from previous Touring, but it does open up with this practicality and has a large area to store everything that you need.
It does. I mean, 500 liters, I believe, with the seats up. I think it goes up to 1,600 liters with the seat back flat down. A lot of space. Of course, you can see the boot is quite high because it has the battery pack right there. There is some additional, storage space here, minimal if you want to put some little things in there. But overall, exactly what you expected. It does have the capacity of an SUV, really. So this is where the practicality of the M5 Touring comes into place compared to the M5 sedan.
It does, and with the dynamic new design of the Touring and in the usability, I think these will actually be more popular than BMW actually believes.
Let me close this out. Let me show you the design from the back because we've talked about the design quite a bit. Once again, taillights identical, no change. There you got this new M5 badge with the silver contour
with the silver
all around.
outline. I mean, very controversial diffuser. This is probably the #1 thing, in addition to the weight, that everyone has commented on. You guys have to just see it in person. From here, it's a huge diffuser, really sticks out far from the rear bumper. It really looks nice with the tips. I'm sure the aftermarket will have some changes to that. But what do you think about the diffuser?
I mean, it's got my favorite material on it, which is
the gloss black.
Piano black. I mean, now I gotta clean it. So that's the idea with this one. Of course, people are not gonna touch the piano black on the diffuser, but they will touch it inside. And we're gonna talk about the interior next because, of course, similar to the M5, there are quite a few changes in there.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're not gonna focus on everything that's inside. I've talked about this quite a bit. There's so many different things that you can cover in this video, especially with the iDrive system and all of that. But we're gonna talk about the overall changes compared to maybe other models.
I mean, compared to the F90, I mean, the first thing we'll notice is it has the new flat bottom steering wheel, which we've seen in the LCI G82 and G80, which is a really great design, very dynamic, and it's easier to get in and out of the car with the flat bottom, as you pointed out.
And you also get in the 12 o'clock red stitching, which is specific now to the M models. And then, of course, if you look here at the front, quite a few changes. Once again, the physical buttons are gone, not too many left. You're controlling the vents from here a little bit, but other than that, there is really no physical buttons. Okay, maybe the vent direction from there.
They've definitely added most of the physical buttons here, and there's even a larger M1 and M2 button as well, which is new for this model.
And if you look in this area, what do you think is missing?
I would say definitely the shift knob is missing.
Which is weird, right? Because you're so used to putting your hand on it. It's nice and beefy, it's just one of those things that I wish it would stay there. Of course, the practicality of that, it's irrelevant because you can do the same thing with a toggle shifter, but it just look cool.
Yeah, but they also took your advice and they made everything piano black from here over all the way through.
Everything piano black. Everything piano black. Speaking of more black, you got, of course, piano black right there and all over this area. And then you do have this new interaction bar, which runs across all the way. It's a functional piece. I'm not sure if the car is on, but you can see it right there. You can get the lights flashing everywhere in the car. Of course, if you open the door and there is an incoming car or a pedestrian or a bicycle, you will get an alert, a visual alert right there as well. And I guess if you call and you take a call in the car, this will start flashing as well. There's so many different things that you can do with this. So of course you have this very large, the two-piece actually LCD screen. So really no difference from any other new BMWs we've seen.
Recently. Yeah, it also has the Bowers & Wilkins sound, which is a great upgrade for the car. It's really nice, especially for this level of trim, being a top-of-line M5. And then I think the other thing to mention is it does have the new boost feature.
Yeah, so I think you're getting a little bit more torque to help you with quick overtakes, something we've seen in other BMWs as well. How about the seats?
Super comfy. I like the seats when we first sat in them at Goodwood. I really like the finish. And the two-tone carrying through the door panel into the back as well is a really nice touch that I like that BMW added.
I still wonder why people want carbon bucket seats in an M5. I don't see the point.
I would agree, especially with the nature of the car and the way it's going to be used, I would say. But these are super comfy.
Yeah, I'm sure if they do an M5 CS, they're probably going to offer carbon bucket seats. That's normal, but that's a totally different car than maybe a little bit more track focused despite the weight. But for a regular daily driver that's fast and stylish, I don't see the point of having carbon bucket seats because, just getting in and out of the car, it's always a pain. Interior space, plenty, right? We're two big guys, quite tall. We have plenty of space. Even with the seat all the way back almost, there is still plenty of space in there, so seating 5 people. But of course, compared to the M5 sedan, we're getting the practicality of the boot and a lot more luggage to haul around.
I think it's a great choice for BMW to finally bring this here, and it's the first in the US, and hopefully it's not going to be the last.
So let me ask you this. If money no object, which car would you get, the M5 sedan or the Touring?
I would get the Touring, and I would order it in some sort of individual color with an individual interior option to really have kind of the best I can get while we have one Touring.
And you and I don't always agree on everything, but honestly, I have to go with you on this one because if you have kids, 1, 2, 3, maybe not, but if you have 2 kids and you want to be still stylish in a way and not blend in with all the million SUVs on the road, I think this will be the car to do that with.
Absolutely.
Once again, guys, this was the BMW M5 Touring live from the concept launch in Pebble Beach. See you in the next one.